allow me to introduce myself. My name is Werner Schroeder. I'm the founder of the Ascended Master Teaching Foundation. Before I describe the lecture series entitled The Ascended Masters Answer the Fundamental Questions of Life, I'd like to briefly mention a few things about myself. I was born and educated in Germany. I studied in Berlin, mechanical engineer. After escaping from the Russian-controlled sector of Germany in 1949, I became a citizen of the United States. I qualified as a registered civil engineer in California and worked for over 20 years as a highway design engineer. I married in 1958. My wife Annette had graduated from San Jose College and received a master's degree in education from Stanford University. Already, when being 7 years old, I inquired about the fundamental questions of life, which are: why am I here? What is my purpose? What happens after I close my eyes after the end of this life? I was told no one knows the answer to these questions. My search for truth led me from being a member of a Lutheran church to becoming a Christian Scientist and later a Rosicrucian. Several years later, I heard about the teachings of the Ascended Masters. I asked for an interview with Alice Schütz, former secretary to Geraldine Innocenti and an eyewitness to the dictations given by the Ascended Masters to Miss Innocenti. During an interview lasting for several hours, I was introduced to the basics of the teachings of the Bridge to Freedom. After the interview, I decided to take an early retirement from my job and moved to the town of Mount Shasta. Later, I became friends with William Cassiere, a messenger appointed by Saint Germain, who for 9 years had worked closely with Mr. Ballard, and for a time lived in the Ballard's home in Chicago. William Cassiere prepared the way for Mr. Ballard and the Ascended Host in a similar way that John the Baptist prepared the way for Jesus. He taught Bible classes, explaining the meaning of the statement, "I am that I am." And he talked about the biblical passages that could be interpreted as referring to re-embodiment. In this way, he laid the groundwork for a future visit of Mr. Ballard. Brother Bill gave many classes. Giving seminaries in many cities, he lectured up to 5 different groups during the week. He stated to me, when Mr. Ballard or I were lecturing, there was hardly ever any class during which a major miracle did not occur. Many times people left their crutches at the meetings. They were no longer needed. He told me that about 2/3 of the people who requested healings from him were healed. He stated that Mr. Ballard had the same results. In a private dictation given by Saint Germain through Mr. Ballard on August 18, 1939, Brother Bill was told that I had earned the ascension. I have a copy of that dictation. I met Brother Bill at his last public lecture in Grants Pass, Oregon. That was in 1985. We became good friends. He was very much interested in the work of the AMTF, and he became a member. Brother Bill's writings have been included in the AMTF book, The Law of Precipitation. He donated all of his possessions of a spiritual nature to me. This included the chart of the I Am Presence he lectured from for 50 years. Yes, 50 years. This is his chart. Brother Bill made the ascension at the age of 90 in 1987. Annette and I attended the last conference of the Bridge in 1978 and in 1979. Here we found out that the original dictations given to Miss Innocenti were no longer available for public sale. We also found that there were only about 5 persons left who had a complete set of the original dictations. Annette and I decided to save the teachings of the Bridge to Freedom and republish them. It took 4 years and 6 separate attempts to gather the original text. At one time, a trip to Switzerland was necessary to copy just one book. After examining the original text, we found that the dictations were printed in 20-page booklets, and no subject was ever treated in detail and in its entirety. Annette and I felt that there was a need to reprint all of the 6,000 pages of the original dictations on a subject-by-subject basis, in consecutive order, all in the form of textbooks. We also agreed that for completeness, the 7,000 pages of dictations given by the masters to Mr. Ballard also needed to be consulted. This we did, and as a result of this research, we concluded that there was total agreement between the dictations given through Mr. Ballard and Miss Innocenti. There were no contradictions. In 1980, Annette and I founded the Ascended Master Teaching Foundation, abbreviated AMTF. It is the purpose to follow exclusively the original Bridge to Freedom teachings. As a result of our effort, I can state that the entire message of the dictations given to Mr. Ballard and Geraldine Innocenti has now been republished, partially in my own words, as follows. Edition number 1. It contains the original dictations as given to Geraldine Innocenti in book format with no text changes. Edition number 2 consists of 18 new books plus 1 encyclopedia, all compiled according to modern literary standards, with all the subjects described on a subject-by-subject basis, all in chronological order and in textbook format. Thanks to the dictations of the Ascended Masters, students now have access to a treasure house of information never before available to mankind since the days of Atlantis. This includes knowledge of the following items: the location where mankind first entered our planet, together with the time period when this happened, the time period known as the Garden of Eden, mentioned in the Bible and the so-called fall of man, the Lemurian Atlantean civilizations, including an eyewitness report of the survivor of the Atlantean catastrophe. That report is given in lesson 16, and it is printed in the 300-page book, Man, His Origin, History and Destiny. Also covered is the method of the construction of the first pyramids, dictations of Master Jesus evaluating the conduct of present-day churches, the biographies of 107 Ascended Masters as printed in the AMTF book, Ascended Masters and Their Retreats. Also, an eyewitness report of the ascension of Jesus. Therefore, based on the teachings of the Ascended Masters, we can now answer the questions: why am I here? What is my purpose? What happens after I close my eyes after the end of this life? To start off, all of us who are right now in embodiment on this planet made the voluntary choice a long time ago for our first embodiment on earth. No one forced us to do so. It was explained to us that by taking this course of action, we would widen the borders of God's kingdom, and at the same time we would gain in our spiritual development. Answering the remainder of the fundamental questions, namely what happened after I close my eyes at the end of this life, takes a lot longer to explain. Here we need to talk about the process of the ascension. In order to achieve the ascension, a student needs to study and apply the teachings and understand the reasons why. That is the intent of this lecture series entitled The Ascended Masters Answer the Fundamental Questions of Life. Following these lessons places you on the path to your ascension. There are 16 lessons. There are an average of 4 parts to each lesson. The length of each part varies from 4 minutes to 12 minutes. The lessons are based on the 13 books and 2 booklets listed at the end of lesson 16. Students wishing additional information on a certain subject may refer to these books. These books in turn are the summary of 13,000 pages of dictations given by the Ascended Masters to the authorized messengers Guy Ballard and Geraldine Innocenti from 1930 to 1939 and 1952 through 1961. You will find that every lesson and every part of a lesson has been prepared in graded consecutive order. I have made every effort to explain every subject in a simple, straightforward manner. Also, there are no duplications. Every subject is explained only once. This teaching was formerly only given in retreats of the Ascended Masters. It contains all necessary knowledge that, if applied, will enable a student to gain the goal of all life, the ascension. May I suggest that those who are unfamiliar with the concept of the Ascended Masters ask the Ascended Master Jesus and our Mother Mary for help and guidance. Some of you might ask why this teaching is not more generally known. This question will be answered in part 2 of this lesson. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the technical assistance of students from Grupo Serapis Bay of Panama in preparing these lessons. This lecture series is dedicated to seekers of truth everywhere. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed listening to lesson number 1, part 1, and we will meet again for part 2 of this lesson. God bless you.